The story of Snowflake. I'm a little lamb named Snowflake. My shepherd master named me Snowflake because I was the whitest baby he had ever seen. I was born in the spring when the fruit trees were blooming and the birds were singing and all the world was beautiful in its green grass. Of course, I did not know what the real snowflake was, for only on the highest mountain ridges does snow fall in our country. That is, I did not know until one day when something dreadful happened to me. Every morning our strong shepherd took us out to pasture. I always tried to be the first one out the door of the sheepfold when he opened it early in the morning. I could hardly wait to get started, for my legs wanted to run and jump, and my mouth wished for the sweet, juicy grass. Sometimes the master said, "Now, Snowflake, don't be in such a hurry." But I knew that he loved me, for he always gave me a friendly pat as he scolded me. I would jump about until the old sheep slowly moved out of the narrow door one after one. Then we would finally get started. The path through the mountains to our pasture was not always an easy one to follow. I wondered if I could not find better places to go than up the rocky, winding way which the shepherd led us. The old sheep never looked to the right side nor to the left, even when they could see patches of grass not far away. They followed close behind the shepherd until he stopped at the place where they were to spend the day. Then they would begin to eat, and most of them stayed close to him all day long. I thought they were very foolish, for I discovered such exciting places all by myself. It seemed that the greenest grass always was further away. Once I saw some juicy patches at the bottom of a steep pile of rocks. I was sure that I could jump down there on my spry legs and climb up again. But alas, when I had gone part way, I discovered that my leg was stuck between two of the rocks. I felt very thankful when the shepherd came along with his long crook and hooking it around my neck pulled me up again. We had another exciting day when a great lion came sneaking out of the woods. Our watchful shepherd saw him almost as quickly as we did. He had jumped up, put a sharp stone in his slingshot, and more quickly than I can tell you about it, he let that stone fly straight for the lion's head. And then as the lion turned around with a roar of pain and started to run for the woods, our brave shepherd grabbed up his heavy rod and ran after him. I felt like staying close to the shepherd myself that day. But usually I was not at all careful. I loved to run ahead of the others and find the tenderest grass before they got there. Sometimes the shepherd would get very cross at me for running so far ahead that he could not see where I had gone. Then he would call for me, and oh, how I hated to turn around when I had heard his voice calling, "Snowflake, come back here." I did like to have my own way and go wherever I pleased without someone always calling me. Usually I took a few more bites after I heard my name and then ran back. But one day I was very bad. I did not go back. The days were getting cooler, for it was winter in the Holy Land. I thought that I was very grown up and quite a big lamb. The bright, crisp air and the sunshine made me feel as if I could jump over anything that came into my path. I was so full of life that the shepherd noticed how I was early that morning. "Be careful, Snowflake," he said. "You have a bad little look in your eye. You stay close with the rest of the flock today. The weather's getting bad." Yes, indeed, I thought to myself, I do have a bad look in my eye, for I'm not going to be treated like a baby anymore. Today, I'm going to have a fine time before the winter, which my mother told me about, really comes. I'll show all these poky old sheep what a good time I can have. I was disappointed when I saw the meadow which the shepherd chose for our day's eating. It was not nearly so far away from home, so many of the places where he had taken us before. The grass was not so green as that which he had us at yesterday. Right then and there I determined to find some good pasture for myself. So I played around, not eating much, until my mother and the shepherd both were looking the other way, and then I ran off behind a big rock, which I had not seen that far away. From there I could look far up the hillside. Sure enough, the grass up there seemed greener and fresher than our pasture. Oh, what a feast I would have all by myself! As I went up the hill, I stopped to eat the juiciest patches of grass by the way. Once I heard a strange noise in the bushes beside me, but I only ran on faster, and I had a lovely time eating and playing up there by myself. Suddenly, as I lifted my head to look for another batch of grass, I noticed that the bright sunshine was gone. Dark clouds were making the afternoon look like every evening already. One of the winter storms must be coming. Perhaps I'd better start back down the hill. But which way was the flock and the shepherd? I had run around so much that I could not be sure which way I had come. How far I had come up the large hill. I ran down the path, hoping that I was going in the right direction, but not feeling sure. The hillside looked the same around me. I had seen rocks like that coming up the hill. But in a minute I knew that was not the path, for directly in front of me was a high cliff which dropped down, until I was dizzy looking. My fun was all at once gone. I wish very much that I were back with the flock. The shepherd would be looking and taking them home before the storm came, and they would be perfectly safe with him, even if it stormed before they reached the sheepfold. I turned around and climbed up the hill way before I started down again in a different direction. Yes, far, far below, and almost out of sight, I could see the flock. They were following close behind the shepherd who was taking them home. And here was I, far away, all alone, on a rocky hillside with a storm coming. I began to in fright and anxiety, hoping that the shepherd would hear, but he was too far away. In a few minutes, the whole flock was out of sight, and I was alone out in the wilderness. The sky grew darker and darker. A cold wind began to blow. I decided that I must get down this hill and try to find my way home alone. I jumped and slipped over the rocks. The sharp briars on the bushes caught my soft white wool and pulled it out. They scratched my face as I went by, as if they wanted to keep me right there all night. I kept going faster in my fright, until suddenly I slid over the edge of a big rock and fell into the middle of one of those thorny bushes. My wool caught in the briars and held me fast. I kicked and struggled, but I could not get free. I was caught, and the storm was beginning to break. The sky was as dark as night now, and something cold and white landed on my nose. Then more little wet, cold flakes fell upon me. Now I knew how the shepherd got my name. They were snowflakes, as white as my wool, but oh, so wet and cold. In a few minutes I was shivering all over. The other sheep would be home by now. I thought, safe and warm in the fold, with the loving shepherd shutting the door tight. They would snuggle together and be as warm could be, while I was freezing here on the lonely hillside. Oh, surely my mother would see that I was gone. Surely the shepherd would miss me when he called each sheep by name as it went into the fold. He would count 95, 96, 97, 98. 99? But not 100 as he usually did. He would miss me too when he poured healing oil upon the scratched places on their backs, for he often had to bind up some of my sore places after I had been careless. The snowflakes were coming faster and colder now, and the wind whistling through the bushes and around the rocks. I could hardly bleat any more. My voice was hoarse, and I knew that I should soon die from the cold and the dampness unless someone came to find me. I could not help myself. But who would come out in the lonely hillside in the blackness of the fierce storm? Even our big, strong shepherd would be risking his life in such a storm and darkness. He would be tired and glad to get into his warm home to rest by the fire. Why should he go tramping into the raging wind and wet snow and over rocky paths which he could not see to get one little lamb? I was not worth very much, but in spite of such sad thoughts, I kept hoping that he would come. Every once in a while I would give a weak little bleat in case he might come looking for me. Then I heard him. I heard that wonderful voice, which I knew so well. He was looking for me. He was calling, "Snowflake!" Perhaps I was dreaming. No, I heard him call again. My heart beat faster with joy. "Here!" I bleated as loudly as I could. "Bah!" Again he called, a little nearer now, and again he called as loudly as I could. Then he heard me. Over the rocks he came, stumbling and almost crawling against the bitter wind. How tired and cold he looked. I felt very badly to think how my tender shepherd had suffered because of my naughty, selfish ways. The sharp thorns had pricked him too, and torn his hands and his face. But how glad he was to see me! In another moment he had picked me up carefully out of the briars, and tucked me inside his heavy coat, just like a wee lamb once more. It was warm and dry there. I still shivered, but in a few minutes I began to feel like myself again, against his warm body. I hardly know how we made that long journey home again. The wind howled and whipped around us, and snow had changed to a pouring rain, but my shepherd kept going. At last we were home, safely home. He took me into his house to dry me out by the warm fire, and I heard him call his friends and tell them to be glad with him. "Rejoice with me," he said, "for I have found my sheep which was lost." I really was a grown-up sheep that night, for I never ran away from the Good Shepherd again. The Lord Jesus is the Good Shepherd, and if you have never known the joy of trusting him, won't you come to him and be his very own? Or if you are a poor wandering sheep, won't you let him carry you back into the fold?